Welcome to today's interview. I've brought on my friend, Mandy Johnson. Mandy, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Give the listeners a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
All right, so I lived in Florida, so I'm new to the area. I just moved down from DC right as COVID hit. So I am in Atlantic Beach, Florida, and I'm a social media manager. So I moved down here and I kind of started my own business, and here I am. And I just moved into my first place down here, and I'm right next to the water, and I'm just super excited to be down here.
And living your best life. A little behind the scenes, Mandy and I have actually known each other for a couple of years. We're part of a weekly mastermind where we jump on a call and hold each other accountable. And, I think that's something we definitely preach is your vibe attracts your tribe, but having that accountability buddy to get you through the self-doubt or, not knowing if you feel stuck. And so that's how we've gotten to know each other.
We know each other pretty well.
Yeah. So I want to give a little, if you could take me back to you used to work in corporate. So I want to share a little of your backstory. You used to work in corporate and you left that to kind of do a bit of a startup. And then now you're on your own, which is something a lot of people want, but it just seems so far-fetched. And now that you've been through it, can you shed some light? What is that like?
Uh, it's been a journey, and it's fun because you've been with me through all of it. So you might even be talk better about it than I have. But I don't know. It's been a process. It's been a long. I think it's all of this started probably like 3 years ago. Probably almost 3 years ago. All of this started from me, making the decisions of, really trying to chase what I want and really start to do the work for it. So yeah, I should probably get the exact date that I quit my corporate job, but I think it was March 2018. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. But I don't know. It's been a journey. It's been a ride. Like lots of highs, lots of lows, and I don't really know how else to describe it besides that being this roller coaster that's brought me to a really great place right now. So
But can you remember back when you were in the trenches, when maybe you didn't know the how or the next step and how easy it is to get bogged down by that versus having this internal nudge or feeling knowing you're supposed to be doing something else or that lights you up? And so how do you outweigh feeling bogged down versus the I can do it attitude?
so I specifically remember like I had like a pretty rough breakup for me. Like my most serious relationship ended, and I felt like I was at the lowest low I'd been. Uh, I don't even in a really long time. Like I really hadn't had those feelings before. I was living at home with my parents at the age of like 31, and I would say I was definitely bogged down. I didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I was working in corporate. I knew in my heart that was not what I wanted to do. It was a great job. Like I loved the work, like I loved the people, but I just knew there was more for me. And I think having that life change happen to me nudged me into this like you're like in this road right now. You can keep going and doing what you're exactly doing. Still work the same job, go on, date someone else that is probably the exact same, or pivot and like sit down and like really work on yourself to figure out like why you're where you're at and like what do you want out of this life that you have. And it was since that moment, and I specifically remember my room back at home is like this bright orange room, but I just remember like specifically sitting in my bright orange room, and like I had the like 5 minute journal next to me. I had like all these like self-help books I was Amazoning to the house. And I started to really take the time to work on myself. Like I didn't want to find external things to make me feel better. I knew it had to come from me. And through that, I started to gain that confidence in myself. And I think it's through that work and finding, one of the things I always preach to people is like, take the time to work on yourself. And that's like books and podcasts and like these mastermind class. Like I wouldn't have found, you know, the group that we did that, you know, connected you and I together. And I'm so grateful for that, because look at us, you know, years down the line, we're still, you know, being able to help each other. And I just feel like if you're in the trenches and like trying to just, this is like the cheesiest, but it's like one thing at a time. Just like, I just get grateful, like do some gratefulness practices like once a day. You know, it's just these little things that like build your confidence in yourself. And then you start to really like build this core that I now have, like, I just have this really good foundation now.
Okay, so hold on. You touched on,
But
and
I just
I
feel
took
out
a lot of
like 1,000
notes.
things.
No, but you touch on some really good things. And so that's what I want to help, pave the path for somebody who's sitting there in all the unknowns, not knowing what to do. But the first word you shared that I loved is that you pivoted. So you got to the point, it was like a fork in the road. I can continue down what I'm doing and going to get the exact same results. Or, which means I have a choice, I can take a step back, maybe do internal work, figure out why, and realize, oh, it's on me. It has nothing to do with my boss, my job, significant other, the city I live in, the house. I think that is so much self-awareness, and that takes work.
It really does. And I think that's like, I feel like this has been something that's just shown up a lot lately when talking to other people, is like, it takes work. Like this, it's not like an overnight thing. And for even, you know, people are like, oh, I'm so excited you moved to the beach. Like, that's great. You've always wanted to. I'm like, yeah, but this took like work. This took work, like years of work for me to get to this point. So yeah, it really is just deciding that you have to, like, that choice has to be made. Like, I'm gonna change things, and then like committing, like not turning back. Like there's just, as soon as you start down that path, it's like, don't turn back. Like, don't turn back around. Like, you're not going that way. Like that whole quote. But yeah, it was.
And that's something we talk about often is if you have a plan B, if you have a fail-safe plan, if you're never going to fully commit, you're never going to go on. There is no plan B. So when you decide, when you pivot, when it's like, I'm going to make change or I'm going to leave corporate and figure this out, the plan B isn't, well, I could just go back and get another job, because you're never going to commit. You're never going to become that next version of you or live the life you desire. So what do you want to share about, burning the boats, taking plan B off the table?
Well, I will say I've been very lucky. You know, I have a great like support system with family, friends. So I feel like that's always, it always helps when you have that, because I feel like it like allows you to take, you know, these risks. But ultimately the risks, like you have to be okay with failing and knowing that it might not work out. But we talk about this, like, what's the worst case scenario? Like whenever you're trying to kind of weigh pros and cons of a decision, I always loved this, was what is the worst case scenario, and then work backwards. Like if the worst case scenario is that you fail and you know you do have to go back into something, that's an option, but not for you in this moment. Like I completely agree, like no plan Bs, because this is like you're going all in. um, I I just feel like as soon as you kind of make, yeah, that decision, you kind of have to just like go all in with it. And I lost my train of thought of what we were.
That's okay. It just takes me back to, okay, so I want to give an example. 2020 is a year nobody planned for, but it's about understanding. And a lot of times it's in hindsight, but I want to help people to understand in the moment that life is always happening for you. So you left your home and moved to Florida when all this, but you had already had it all planned before the shutdowns and everything. And so obviously you were thrown off track, and it wasn't the plan, but how were you able to pivot and keep going? And, you had to live with your brother longer than you had planned, but you kept going. And that's what I want to hear. So walk us back just a few months ago.
through all of it. Yeah, so I think, well, talking like the big risk, sorry, that we were just talking about, is like every kind of move I've made, like from this little chess game, has been kind of a risky move. So leaving corporate was a risk. I was making a great salary, and I just, felt the nudge that like there's something more for me, and an opportunity arose, and I took the risk of taking on a new job. And then, I got the nudge again that was like, you're not meant to be in this area. It was like, okay, you've always wanted to live at the beach. Like, your next big risk is to take this move. And so I quit that job and decided, like, again, talking about being lucky, I was able to move in with my brother. But yeah, that was all decided before COVID. And then COVID hit, like, to a T, like the day I moved down to Florida, everything shut down. So it definitely was not what I was expecting. I was expecting to come down here and, start up even like a coaching business. Like, that was originally my plan, was to do coaching. And so I was like all in, like, I'm going to move to Florida. I'm going to start this, like, give me a couple months and I'm going to like kill it in this coaching game. And then I moved down here, and it just, I think with everyone, like, your whole world kind of flipped upside down. Like, you can't go outside, like, you can't meet people. Like, I wasn't able to like even make friends outside of, I was so lucky to have my family. So it was a challenge, but then, and you guys were great, like our other coach Brett, like through all of it, like saw kind of the lows I was in when I first started, but I had such a foundation of like the core things that we've always talked to each other about. I now have like intrinsically in me for life, which is amazing. That when I know that I'm like doubting myself, or I'm scared, or I'm just overwhelmed, I know the core things that make me feel better. And then in that way, build my confidence back up to like, okay, these are the things that make you feel better. Do a gratefulness practice, like exercise, make sure you're journaling, talk to your coaches about like what's going on, or talk to friends, family, candidly. And I was able to just kind of follow these like crumbs, I was called, like, that the universe was giving me. Like, I was leaving a job where I was doing social media, and I loved creating. I love, social media for positivity, being able to, lift people up on it. And like, I love that aspect of social media. And so I took that nugget, and people knew that was kind of my background coming down here. And so I just followed these crumbs. People were asking for help, even if it was free to start, it got my name out there in this community. And then I took another risk and reached out to companies, and was starting to get hired by people to do their management. And then it just kind of has grown into my own company now. So it's just I moved down here with a completely different plan, and it's just amazing how like doors just opened. And we can talk about that, like also the change from the coaching to where I'm at now, which was kind of a big deal for me too.
But that's what I love. You had a plan, what you thought you were going to do. And I think what happens to most people is they get so stuck on this plan that they had laid out. And like you said, you kept having these nudges and taking so-called risks and being backed by them. So I just believe so much in following those nudges, because now it's led you down this different path, which lights you up, and you get to do what you love doing. And I would even love for you to share how quickly, when you make a decision, when you know what you want, for example, like the place you're living in now, which is new to you, but you made a decision, you wanted to live at the beach. And yeah, it was scary, because now you're going to have to commit to rent when clients are coming and going, and you don't have a quote stable paycheck. That's scary.
It's so scary.
But you did it. And then how quickly this cute little place just showed up, and it was like things happen effortlessly.
I know. I mean, you and I are very much into the manifestation, believing things. And that is something that is also has gotten me through so much. Like, I think even before, like, even just leaving the corporate job, just like the actual belief in believing in yourself that like, I'm gonna make this shit happen. Like this is going down, like, and I don't care how it's happening, but it's going to, and like feeling it in your bones. And you and I've talked about like certain moments, and I can try to think of a couple, but this place was one of them where, well, I mean, there's not much to it because I just moved in, but yeah, I had gone up to visit family this past summer, and I came back down, and I felt like it was time. Like I felt I was comfortable in the business, and then it happened in like 2 days. I started looking in this place, and I walked in, and I think it's just one of those like trust that your gut moments of like this, when you just feel like an energy that's like, oh, this is so great. I just walked in and the energy was amazing. It's like right near the water, which was like a dream for me, like to be able just to walk down to the water every morning. Yeah, I feel like whenever I make the decision that of something that I truly want, and it's not like I don't know, we're not like I don't want to be like a brat, like I want it now kind of mentality, but it's like I want this, and it's going to come to me in some form, and I just have to kind of wait for whatever that is, but trust my gut when something is happening, and it's happening for me. And like the whole day of me finding this place was kind of a fun little, like I saw it in the morning. They opened it up. I was the first person to see it, and this was the first house I saw. It was just kind of a crazy little day, but
I love that though, because, and what you shared is, yeah, when you decide and you know what you want, that's what is so, and a lot of people don't have clarity. They don't even know what they want in a partner, how much money, people might say, I want more money. Well, how much more money? But you're right. The how it shows up or unfolds is not your job. And what I love to share and say is I like to know what I want. For example, right now, I really, really want a spin bike. And I have like a road tri bike and an indoor trainer. That's not what I want. I want a spin bike. And they're not cheap. And so I'm like, you know what? I know I want a spin bike. And now I figured out the exact model I want. So not any spin bike, I know the model. And now I'm sitting in excited anticipation, even kind of like seeing myself ride it, and just like I'm so excited how it's going to show up.
I know it's so, and I just love that aspect. But we've talked about it before. It's like knowing what you want, but like being specific, because that's the exact same. Whenever we've talked about it, like, oh, you want to make more money. Well, like that could be $10. Like, sure, the universe can show up with $10 more for you if you believe that's. But like if you're so specific, it's crazy how those things start to happen. But that's its like own kind of probably deep dive into that work, which you know a lot more on that front than I do. But when that stuff happens, it's just the coolest to talk about, like to your friends that like get it, of like it's just this energy that happens, and it's so cool.
Okay, so something that you touched on that I'd like you to share about is this whole, you had an idea, a very rigid idea of you wanted to get into coaching and this is what it was going to look like. But I guess we could see from the outside, it kind of just felt like a push or forcing something to happen. And that's when you decided it didn't feel right at the time and you shifted into what you're doing. But can you share, what was that like? Because it's something you wanted, but it wasn't happening.
Yeah, that was hard because I mean, I love coaching. It's done so much for me. I think like everyone, right? We always talk about everyone has a coach, no matter where you are in life, no matter how successful you are, everyone has a coach to talk to. And so I just love it. I love the process. And so that was something that I was really interested in. And especially since I had gone through, a breakup, I was like, I would love to talk to other people that are, going through the same thing. And like, these are the stuff, all of that. So I was excited about it. And I told friends and family, like it was out there, which was a big step because that's also nerve-wracking to put yourself out there. And then I came down here and you guys could see it was just a weight on me because I was following these crumbs of like this other stuff is starting to happen and people are giving me work that like I really like doing this. And so it started becoming a little bit of a weight because I didn't feel like I was giving it my all. And I don't think I also now I can see the bigger picture. Is like I wasn't ready then. Like I wasn't ready for that. And everything that's happening to me now is just preparing me for if that happens, giving me more to talk about, or, you know, give some little more like little nuggets of knowledge. So, and again, I wish I wrote down the date of this, but we had one of our coaching calls, and I think for it had been for a while, it had been like weeks, but you guys could see this like weight on me. Like it was just heavy. Because again, I wasn't putting in the effort that I needed to make this thing happen. And I've said this to other people too. It's like it's not like you need permission from other people to make these decisions, but sometimes it just really helps to talk about it and have someone kind of back you up. So we had been talking about it, and then finally you guys were like, it's not your time. Like, let it go. Like, it's okay to let something go. And you're big on this too, is like when you're, this whole thing, when you're clenching onto something so hard, not because you want it so bad, it's more of like, it was my ego holding on to this thing of like, I told people I was going to do this. Like, I look like a failure. Like, if I don't. And I was holding on to it for those reasons, not because my heart was telling me. It was my ego having me hold on to it. And then finally, after you guys that day were like, just let it go. Like, it's not gone forever. And it's so true. It's just like, it's not the time right now. And I wish I had like a video of me that day, or I wish there was a way to show like how much better I felt, like kind of giving that permission to myself, and you guys just reminding me like to let it go, and a weight lifted. And then even then more jobs ended up showing up for the social media. And it was like this whole thing of like the moment that you let go of something that you thought you wanted, other great things end up showing up in your life. And that has been such an eye-opener for me from the get-go of this whole like from years of transformation for me, is knowing like when you don't get what you think you want, you end up getting like something so much better. So
well, that's such a powerful message, Mandy, because yeah, I love the example, you know, when you're clenching, when you're holding on too tight, you're literally restricting the flow of life and things coming to you. And I guess the important message to share is when you find your space, find yourself in a space of trying or forcing, or like you said, making things happen, you're not coming from the right space, because you didn't try and make things happen to find a place to live. It just happened.
yeah.
So that is just so powerful to know the difference when you're feeling pulled in a direction with those nudges and crumbs versus pushing to make it happen. There's a difference, and so follow those.
Such a huge difference. It's physical too. It's not just mental. Like we talk about this too. It's like when you hold things in you physically when stuff isn't aligned for you in your life. Like, you know, if you are in a relationship that doesn't feel right, your gut tells you it's not right. Or, you know, if you're super stressed about something, because like even when, you know, going through that stuff, like I start to get really stressed in my back, or, you know, it's just showing up in different ways. Like your body's telling you, your mind's telling you, and it's just like, listen. You gotta be willing to listen. And a lot of that time is, you know, a lot of times when that happens is when you're like putting in the work to, you know, journal or figure out like why you're in the space you are. For us, it's coaching. Like for me, that's the gift every week that I can work through some of this stuff.
So. Okay. So then question from your journey and what you would want to share with listeners, like what is a key takeaway you want them to get
from all of this? So I loved the prompt you gave me from, you know, what would I tell my younger self? And it's hard because I would tell her 1,000 things that I have advice for her for. But one thing that again, like I hate having these like cheesy motivational or inspirational stuff, but I think the beginning of my process was realizing that you don't have to, like, I think I was good. I was like, I have a good job. You know, I'm not in a bad place by any means, but not settling for good, because there's great out there. There's exceptional. There's fantastic. Like there's so many things out there that are beyond what you're in, especially if you feel like there's more. Like if you if you feel like there is a push to do something, like don't settle. Like that would be my biggest thing, because I felt like in so many, if I look back in so many different like phases of my life, I was settling for things, or I was being someone that I, looking back, wasn't truly who I am now. And I know we change over time, but not settling. And then I always go back to like trusting your gut. Like something's telling you something's up always. So I would, those are my like big takeaways from.
On that note, because sometimes it's hard to be like, well, I don't know what my gut is telling me, especially if you're, maybe in a relationship and trying to outweigh pros and cons. Number one, that's a bad place to be. But how do you know the difference in, okay, this is maybe ego and self-sabotage trying to keep me from that greatness that you talk about, versus this is the intuitive nudge, this isn't the direction for me?
I think it's well, it's kind of hard because they're very similar, but I think if you're able to, for me it was a lot of this journaling and sitting down and being quiet, and like we always say it's like peeling back the layers of the onion, like, okay, why am I feeling this way? I think if you can sit down and you're like, why are you feeling this way, you're able to come at it from a way of, not from an outside perspective, like what is going on inside of here, that tells you a lot of what's going on. And I think it'll show you what those different gut feelings are. Because if I look back, like those gut feelings of like, that wasn't right, like you weren't meant for that person, you weren't meant for that job, like all of that was so strong. And I see now some of those guts of like, even getting this place, like my gut was like, this is really quick, like can you afford it, like are you sure you might not have a client tomorrow, like all of these things. But that gut was more of, if I sat back, and I sat there and I was like, you're excited but you're scared. And it was a different feeling from then of other feelings that I've had before of that, don't do it. I feel like if you can start to do the work, you can start to figure out like what those different little gut feelings are happening. Because honestly, I was super nervous to like move into this place, and thank God I like sat back and I was like, why are you feeling this way? Why are you nervous? Or like, what is your gut really telling you? And I was like, it's telling you to do it. Like you're just nervous because this is an exciting thing, but it's a big deal. And again, it's kind of a risk, but I was able to.
You touched on that is so important, because there's a difference between, you have the same physiological, you might have tightness in the chest or sweaty palms or like knots in the stomach, but you get the exact same, all of that happens when you're excited and like going for something versus when you're nervous and it's not. So understand the feelings, but you're right, tie it back to the emotion. What's actually the root? What's the thought creating the feeling? Excitement. Yeah.
Which has been such a big transformation, I think, for myself too, is like really stepping back and like, why do you feel these way? Like I never did that before growing up, and we're not really taught that either. And I think that's what this, like these last couple of years of this like journey I've been on, is like really stepping back and being like, why do you feel this way? Or why are you inspired to have this line of work? And it does. And that's what keeps you going, or makes you realize you need to make a change. It's just like being able to step back, and that's been a huge change for me, which has been.
So it sounds like what I got from there is self-reflection and awareness.
Yes.
So to take the time.
Hard.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I have a few questions to ask you to wrap up the interview. The first one being, what is a quote or motto that you live by?
You didn't prompt me for this one. I am the worst at quotes. Can I just wait for it from my cup? Something that I live by. This is, again, like I feel like I'm literally just a Google search for inspirational quotes. But I'm also a big believer in energy, and like what you put out, you get back. And I don't know if that's the quote, but like, be kind to others and they'll be kind to you. Like, I know that sounds cheesy, but I just feel like everything that's happened in my life is because of how I've treated people in the past. And, a lot of what I'm doing now is, being able to work with people that I haven't talked to in years, but it's because, we were able to have a great connection in the past, because I feel like I'm the same person energy wise than and I'm hopefully even more so now, but I would say that's something I live by. I don't know if that's a good
No,
answer.
I think that I love that. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Oh, I just put it away. But wish is fulfilled. It's right here. So I just, as I'm leaving the camera, so I just started this one. Have you read this one yet?
No, Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Yeah. So this is the Mastering the Art of Manifestation. So again, I know you're big on that too. So I've had it in, of course, so I moved, so I got like to see all my books again. I'm like, why do I have so many books? But this was one of them, and I haven't read it yet. So I just started it, and it's great already. Like I'm on the higher aspects of yourself is the next chapter I'm on. So I guess I would just recommend it because I feel like other people have. But what are some other books I've absolutely loved? I mean, I love the You Are a Badass books. I feel like there's something about it that just like gets you revved up. I've like anything in that series. It's just they're just kind of like I don't know, just like an easy, digestible, like.
Well, she's witty. So Jen Sincero wrote all the You Are a Badass books, but she's witty. She's quick to the punch, and like she gives it bluntly.
It's great. The Four Agreements is something. I know these are all like, Google like best help, but that one has actually been a great one for me too, as far as like interactions with people. Has been a great learning one for me. So yeah.
Final question for you. What's next?
What's next? Taking over the world, obviously. What is next for me? I've been thinking about this more and more of, being in the work that I am, and sometimes you do have days that are like overwhelming, but I truly like helping other people like shine, and that's always something I've wanted to do. I've always wanted to, help people in a way, and I feel like in the sense weird, but on social media, like I get to work with these businesses that this is their livelihood, and I want to make them as successful as possible. And so I know that the work that I'm doing is doing that. So I just want to be able to help more people do that, because I feel
It lights you up.
Yeah, it lights me up. I want to see other people have their dreams come true as well. So, and I feel like when I get to work with small businesses like this, it truly is. That's, they took a risk and they started these businesses too, and I'm just able to help them make it bigger and better. So
I love that. And yeah, Mandy, I'm excited to watch this all unfold for you.
thank you. And same for you. It's so great to be on this podcast, because I've wanted to for a while, and it's such a great podcast. But I just thinking about being on here and like talking to my younger self, and just if she had known like that she would meet such great people like you and have this like whole new world open up for her, she would have, I don't know, probably laughed. But I'm excited to see what's ahead for you as well, because I just know there's big things.
Yes. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, anytime. I'm around. You know where I am. You can find me anytime. Just sitting on this couch. Hopefully I'll have furniture more next time you talk to me.